I am convinced that the key to longevity with fulfilling relationships, is mastering the art of repair. And the truth is it comes back to we all desire to be seen, heard, loved, known, understood. And that is the definition of connection, right? Being connected with other humans. So, um, learning how, and ruptures are normal in relationships, they're going to happen. We're not 100% always going to agree or see eye to eye or have the same perspective of that conversation or that argument or whatever. So, learning how to come back together into a space that is clear of tension or judgment or frustration or resentment toward each other is vital, right? And for all you parents out there of teens, I know you feel this on a daily basis. And this is the dance. This is the dance of raising teens. This is the dance of being in partnership to be able to ebb and flow between disconnection and reconnection. And I think one of our jobs as parents and partners is to not hold the other person to the past tension, to the rupture. We're not holding them to that same space. We're not saying, oh, I'm not going to let you forget that. Well, you did that once. It's really, and this is maybe what they call forgiveness. I have such a skewed sense of forgiveness after growing up in the church, but because forgiveness in the church almost felt like just pretending that it didn't bother you. And I was like, never going to be okay with that. So maybe forgiveness is truly saying that was a piece of you, that was a part, that was a thing that happened, but it's not the whole of you. It's not your essence. And I'm choosing to focus and remember who you are at the core and your essence. Okay, so if you haven't listened to part one and part two of rupture and repair in relationships, definitely go back and listen to those. And let's dive into the final piece of repairing after rupture. So, as you can probably tell, if you've listened to the first ones and you've begun to practice this, this is pretty intense work. It's simple in that presenting it to you, it's like, yeah, that makes sense. Hopefully. But it's very deeply, deeply complex in that when you get into it and the nitty gritty of it, it's an effort. It really takes you pulling on your higher self, right? That deeper level of consciousness that's saying, I am recognizing my ego and I'm choosing not to go with the ego. I am setting my ego aside and I am honoring the deeper space between us, the which is past this rupture, which is back to the reconnection, which is agreeing with and connecting with the other person's essence, with my true essence, with my authentic self. Okay. So all that sounds like really ethereal and, hippy dippy, but let's talk about what this looks like. All right. I'm going to use the most common rupture and repair cycle that I have, which is with my teenage daughter. It's a daily basis. And you know what? I've gotten to the point, she's 15 now. I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I'm just riding the waves. We'll have good days, we'll have really fucking stupid days. And I'm just like, okay, neither one lasts. Okay. So I'm here to learn and love and explore and experience. That's why I'm here. And guess what? I'm getting that. I'm getting that with all the highs and lows and psychosis of raising teenagers. All right. So, um, I'll just tell you a little side note with teenagers. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from my kid's therapist. And she said, don't take it personally. Just stop taking their behavior so personally. And really hard to do because, again, our culture, our society says that children are a reflection, a direct reflection of their parents. And more specifically, children are a direct reflection of the parenting they've received. Okay. And again, there are elements of that that are true, and there are elements that are just completely mythical. All right. Because we can be loving parents who show up, who do our own work, who are paying attention, who are doing the ruptures and repairs. And these kids, these individuals, these souls still have their own will. They get to choose, they get to make their own choices. And that doesn't always have the influence or the reflection of a parent or the caregivers in there. So there's a lot there, and that dives into the psychology behind child development and things like that, nature versus nurture, which I love. It's like one of my favorite things to talk about. However, let's keep it short for this, okay, because that's not really the point. We're going back to an example. Me and my daughter, it's a daily thing where we will reconvene after school, after I'm picking her up, and that's such a the reunion, let's call it that. The reunion after spending some time apart is really important. And whether this is, oh, we were both at work, talking about partners, or my kid was at school, or I haven't seen my friend in a while, like whatever it is, the reunion, that space, it's sacred. And it's important to go into that as consciously as you can, and with as much breath and pause and space that you can muster. And I know it's not always a possibility, right? Like we just move from one thing to the next. So we can't always just say, hold on, I can't see you until I get my 3 minutes of breath work in. Like, I know, I get it. Okay. But as soon as you're aware of it, just breathe. Like, what I try to do, I don't always execute this. Okay. But my goal is when I first see my kids is to hold space for them, ask them, how was your day? And I don't have the typical kids, probably because I've talked so damn much their whole lives. I don't have the typical kids that they just say fine, good. They know I'm looking for, what was the best part of your day, what was the worst part, what stuck out to you, what's sticky, what are you still thinking about, type of thing. So when I ask them, hey, did you have a good day? They'll go, eh, it was all right, I'm tired, or whatever, and we'll get into it, right? And I just try to hold that space without interjecting my own. But sometimes I get real amped up and I'm like, do you have space to hear some of my stories from today? Sometimes my daughter will be like, yeah, go for it. And other times she'll be like, no, I just want to be quiet. And I do my fucking best to honor that. Because I don't know if you remember being a teenager, but I do. And the hormones raging, and that very, very, very small window of tolerance was just very raw and easily ignited, like lit up. And I try to honor that. If they say, no, I don't want to hear your stories, I say, that's cool, I totally understand. Let me know when you do, and that's great. That is like a great way to connect. Okay. So going back to ruptures and repairs, when there has been a rupture. So a lot of times in the morning, there will be some sort of rupture and we don't get to repair till I pick her up from school. Okay. I usually start those off with, hey, I'm really sorry about this morning. Um, I got out of hand with my emotions and did not regulate myself before diving into with you. And I apologize for raising my voice or coming down so hard or not taking time to think through that before we talked about it. Um, next time I'd like to pause and take a little bit more space and listen to you before I make a decision or something like that. Rarely, like sometimes I'll say, actually, I never, we don't say, I hope you'll forgive me. Do you forgive me? Like that, to me, that's like one of those rote rhetoric things that we say, but it really doesn't have any depth behind it. So for me, what I've taught my kids is apologize, acknowledge the wrongdoing or acknowledge the mistake that was made, validate how they must have felt, you know. I'm sorry if that caused you any pain or hurt you. I apologize for that. That was not my intention. And here's what I want to do differently next time. That piece, here's what I want to do differently next time. Here's what I plan to do, is vital. It's vital for repair. It must happen. Okay. So if somebody doesn't offer you that in your apology, then you can ask and say, okay, thank you for your apology. What can you tell me you'd like to do differently next time? Or what's your plan next time this happens? And you discuss that. Okay. But if it's you apologizing, then, you could say, here's what I'd like to do differently next time. So, um, I'm really sorry I put that on you. And then you just hold. And I don't require my kids to say, I forgive you. Like, no, that never happens. But usually they'll say, okay. And sometimes we'll just leave it at that. Okay. And then it's silent. And that's okay. Like, that's okay. They don't owe me anything if I was in the wrong, right? And a lot of times it's both of us, of course, because they're teenagers. But in a parent child relationship or caregiver child relationship, to me, in my perspective, the ownership, the pursuit, the initiation, and the leadership lies with the adult. I do not put that on my kids to lead me into repair. That would be misplaced. Maybe one day when they're adults, not now, not when they're still in my house and I'm still paying for everything. That is my job. And maturity level, that's just how that works. So consider that. And if you're in partnership and the repair is happening, then you can say, after you've apologized and let that hold space, then you could say, when you have, I overuse the word space, but when you have space or capacity to hear my perspective or how your actions impacted me, I'd like to talk through that. So please let me know when we can, right? And then you have that conversation. This is such a dance, right? Do you see why I say it's a dance to learn how to repair and reconnect? There's an art and a flow to it. So it's not just one person bulldozing through. I will be heard. You will see my perspective. You will understand why I'm right. That's not going to happen. That will not get you connection. But if you can get to the place where you can soften, where you can soothe and release your ego from taking the wheel, and you can bring your creativity, problem solving brain back online and lead conversation with kindness and compassion and curiosity, then we're cooking with peanut oil, as they say. That's the sweet spot. So these are all the factors that go into repairing and reconnecting. And guess what? When you get a flow with this, what happens is every rupture becomes an opportunity to bond and connect even more deeply, to be seen and to see the other person more deeply. How fucking beautiful is that? If you learn how to practice this, if you learn how to master this for yourself, you get to know your own emotional blueprint so well that when these ruptures happen, you're just following along the dance, the music, right? You're like, oh, yep, and then I do this, and then I do that, and here we go there. I just need 5 minutes, and I can regulate that. There's that old familiar thought. There's that old familiar feeling. Yep, I know what's going on there. That's not about them. That's my old thing from there. That's my wounding. That's my question about myself. That's something I can answer for myself before I put that on them. And now I can come in to conversation and reconnect, and I can get curious about their perspective and their experience of me. I have a little space to listen and hold that with compassion. And then after that's all heard and we've kind of released the tension, then we can go into the reconnecting and how we want to team up to do this better and differently for both of us next go around, because there will be another go around. It will happen. So let's make a plan together. Here's how we want to handle that. Here's how we want to show up. Fucking beautiful. Try it. If you need help, if you need any assistance along this way, because I know there's a lot of nuance that I did not cover. I just want to acknowledge that. There's so much. I'm literally sweeping over this, but there's a lot of nuance in there. So if you get into it and you're like, I can't put all the pieces together. I don't know how to connect this one to that, and reach out to me, to any coach who's trained in this kind of language and dynamic, a therapist. Get help, get the resources, learn the tool so you can do it for yourself, so you can teach your kids, and we could change the whole fucking world. Let's go. You got this.